So I lost 20% of my portfolio in a single day. Yes, a whole 20% fully gone. Before we get into that, welcome to my channel where I just talk about random topics that are on my mind. Anyways, how did I manage to lose such a large portion of my portfolio in mere hours while we were in such a crazy bull market? And is it even investing at that point, or is it just glorified gambling? I'll also be going through a plan that I have developed later on in the video, which is will hopefully slingshot me back into the green. So you're probably thinking, what speculative stock did he top blast, and why didn't he stick to the boring S&P 500? And to be honest, that's a fair question. Truthfully, I got stuck in what's called a value trap. So to give some context, a few weeks after I turned 18, I came across United Health Group, and their stock had fallen from around $600 to just $250. Now, to me, that drop looked insane, and after some shallow digging, let me preface, like really shallow digging, I found out that they're the largest healthcare company in the world. So my logic was simple, right? Everyone needed healthcare, so this stock had to rebound. And I was so wrong. So initially, I invested just a few £100 into the $250 level, and up until now, nothing was too crazy. Just some diversification into the healthcare market, and at this point, the stock was like 7% of my portfolio, so it was all fine. However, this is where things started to take a turn and started going downhill. Later in the week, actually, news broke out that Warren Buffett had invested 1.5 billion into this United Health stock, which obviously made the price take off. Warren Buffett's one of the most successful investors ever. He has loads of copy traders, so obviously it will. So at this point, I was up like maybe 15% on my initial investment, which felt insane to me. Bear in mind, this was one of the first stocks I've ever purchased, like singular stocks. So seeing such a high return in a week or so exploded my ego. I genuinely thought I could be the next Buffett. I convinced myself that, this stock was so ready to get back to $600. Look, give it 2 weeks, it will be literally at 600 with this like momentum that's generated. So I did the stupid thing, right? I kept buying more shares, and that greed is what slowly killed me and killed my portfolio. And slowly but surely, my shares in the company grew and grew. 7% allocation turned into 15, then 15% turned to 25%, then 40%. Then at one point, I had 60% of my entire portfolio in United Health. To put that into perspective, that's about £3,000 in a single stock. Bear in mind, I earned most of that money while working for £8 an hour. After doing some quick maths, that's over 300 hours of pure labour, all like in a company I barely understood. I barely even knew where they made their money. And due to constantly purchasing on green days and just buying the top, my average had creeped higher and higher. That's where it hit me. It hit my 18-year-old mind. I was like, this stock's movement throughout the day affects my whole portfolio. It wasn't going green like very often anymore. So at this point, I had two decisions to do, right? Either just sell everything around break even. I was break even basically, and just de-risk, or take the gamble that the stock will return to its former glory, because I still had that hope, and potentially make life-changing money, thousands and thousands. And being the naive teenager I am, I decided to go with the second option. So every dip that came my way, I would load up on more shares. At least I learned not to buy the green candles. Yeah, but fast forward to about 2 weeks ago, and the stock was still around 60% of my portfolio, and the stock made its way to around $360, which was quite good. I made some serious money, a couple hundred, and because of that averaging down, that is why I was up. I was up like £500 ish, like give or take, and life felt good. Then the earnings report came out, right? During after hours, the stock dropped around 15% because their revenue growth was forecasted to be quite weak. I was basically back down to break even, which, was annoying, but at least I didn't lose money, right? It's all hypothetical, like unrealized gains. At least I didn't lose any money, right? However, when I woke up, it was much worse. I was down 25% on the stock in a single day. I didn't even know the stock had the capabilities to plummet like that. So after doing some actual thorough research, I found out that those dips that I thought were random, everything just became clearer, the picture was painted, and United Health's growth just seems to be slowing down, and their margins are tightening constantly, especially with all this political pressure, around the orange man and stuff. Basically, the government wants to make healthcare more affordable for American citizens. It's obviously a big threat for United Health as they make their money on sick patients and on insurance. So obviously means I'm sitting on a large loss right now. I think the unrealized loss is £1,000. And it may seem stupid, but I'm still holding. After all, that loss isn't a loss until it's realized. That brings me to my plan, which will make or break my portfolio. And before you ask, yes, it is another gamble, but this time I've sort of thought it through. Basically, by April 6th, CMS will release their final Medicare Advantage rates for 2027. Basically, in easy terms, it's how much premium they can charge for their insurance rate. This review is really important for United Health Group, as Medicare Advantage roughly makes 150 billion a year for the company. A low rate will basically they get no revenue, basically way less revenue in the following years, meaning that obviously the stock will drop because investors are looking at future cash flow. So this is in part why the stock dropped 25% in a single day, as they proposed a rate of 0.09%, where before that, a few days before, the analysts forecasted a rate of 4 to 5%, which was already priced into this stock, the $360, which is why it dropped so fast, so quick. So this is what I'm betting on. I believe that CMS will ease these rates due to, political or investor pressure. And if that happens, then I think the stock will easily rebound for me to be able to exit and cut my losses, maybe even break even, maybe make a few hundred, depending on how greedy I get. In the best case scenario, I escape intact and then finally move my portfolio to way less risky options. Looking back at what I did, why did I do this? I need to pick up a book or something, Investing 101, because it was not good, man. That is the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, right? The 0.09% rate is finalized, which will cause the stock to drop even further, would probably make me lose another £1,000. That's the risk I've accepted, and I truly believe this stock is manipulated to give insiders better entries. This isn't the first time the man in charge has done this. My belief in this is so strong that I'm willing to risk burning my portfolio, risk burning another 1,000. I'm in too deep for this, in this stock to pull my pants up, be I'm done, wave the white flag. No, we're way past that point. It's either all or nothing. I will update you all once the day of the reveal comes. And as always, thanks for watching until the end.